February 3rd, 1945. A city that once shimmered, the Pearl of the Orient, now holds its breath. My name is Arturo, and this is my home, Manila. For 3 long years, we've lived under the shadow of the Japanese occupation. Hope felt like a distant memory, a story we told our children about a time before the fear, before the hunger. But tonight, something has changed. The rumble isn't thunder. It's the sound of artillery, distant but drawing closer. American forces are on the outskirts. Whispers are turning into shouts in the streets. They're here. Liberation is here. We gather around a hidden radio, the static crackling with a voice confirming our prayers. The 1st Cavalry Division has breached the city limits. A wave of euphoria washes over us, a dangerous, intoxicating joy. We believe the nightmare is ending. We believe we are saved. We have no idea that the real horror is just beginning. The first few days were a blur of chaos and celebration. In the northern districts, American soldiers were greeted as heroes. We shared what little food we had, our faces etched with smiles for the first time in years. But south of the Pasig River, a different, more terrifying reality was unfolding. The Japanese forces, under the command of Rear Admiral Sanji Iwabuchi, were not retreating. They were digging in. They had turned our beautiful city, our homes, our churches, our schools, into a fortress. They had decided that if they could not hold Manila, they would destroy it. The initial joy we felt curdled into a cold, creeping dread. The fighting wasn't passing us by. It was coming for us, block by block, street by street. The Pasig River became a line in the sand, separating fleeting hope from utter despair. To the north, relative safety. To the south, a death trap. Iwabuchi's 17,000 men were determined to fight to the last. They were no longer just soldiers. They had become destroyers. They mined bridges, barricaded streets with overturned trams, and turned every grand Spanish-era building into a sniper's nest or a machine gun emplacement. For us, the civilians, there was nowhere to go. We were caught in the crossfire, trapped between 2 advancing armies. The American shelling, meant to dislodge the enemy, didn't distinguish between a soldier and a family huddled in a cellar. The sky, once blue, was now a permanent, choking gray, filled with the dust of our pulverized city. The fighting moved into the heart of Manila. Districts like Ermita and Malate, once vibrant with life, became killing fields. This wasn't open warfare, it was a brutal, intimate struggle. Every house was a potential battleground. Soldiers fought room to room, floor by floor. We learned the terrible symphony of war. The sharp crack of a rifle, the stuttering cough of a machine gun, the deafening roar of an explosion that could mean your neighbor's house or your own had just ceased to exist. We hid in sewers, in basements, under beds, praying that the fighting would pass us. The days bled into nights, and the nights offered no rest, only a different kind of terror in the darkness, illuminated by the constant fires that were consuming our world. But the shelling and the crossfire were not the only dangers. As the Japanese forces grew more desperate, their cruelty intensified. They saw us, the Filipino civilians, not as non-combatants, but as collaborators with the enemy. What followed was a systematic campaign of terror. They burst into homes, shelters, and even hospitals, carrying out unspeakable acts. The Red Cross building, clearly marked, was not spared. They attacked the helpless, the wounded, the doctors and nurses trying to save lives. Places of sanctuary became places of slaughter. We heard stories from those who escaped, stories that will forever be burned into our collective memory. The promise of liberation had brought us into the very mouth of hell. We tried to survive. We did what we had to. A day was measured by a cup of clean water, a handful of rice, or simply seeing the sun rise again. We learned to distinguish the whistle of different shells, to know which ones were coming close and which were passing over. Children, who should have been playing in the streets, learned how to be silent, how to be invisible. We shared rumors, slivers of information. The Americans have taken the General Post Office. They're fighting at the University of the Philippines. Each piece of news was a flicker of hope that this inferno would soon end, but each day brought more destruction, more loss. The city was dying, and we were dying with it. The battle for the walled city of Intramuros marked the climax. This historic heart of Manila, with its ancient stone walls, churches, and colonial buildings, became the final Japanese stronghold. It was a fortress within a fortress. The American commanders, trying to limit further civilian casualties, were hesitant to use heavy artillery. But the resistance was too fierce. The decision was made to bombard Intramuros into submission. For days, the shells rained down. The oldest parts of our city, centuries of history, were turned to rubble and dust in a matter of hours. San Agustin Church, one of the few structures left standing, became a refuge for thousands. But for most of Intramuros, there was no escape. Finally, on March 3rd, after a month of relentless, brutal fighting, it was over. The last pockets of Japanese resistance were eliminated. Manila was declared liberated. But what was left to liberate? We emerged from our hiding places into a ghost city. The Pearl of the Orient was gone. In its place was a smoldering ruin, a landscape of skeletons of buildings silhouetted against a smoke-filled sky. The cost was staggering. Over 100,000 Filipino civilians, my people, were lost in that single month. An entire generation wiped out. The joy of liberation was drowned in a sea of grief. We were free, but we had lost everything. Walking through the ruins of my own street, I hardly recognized it. These were the places I grew up, the corners where I played, the market where my mother bought our food. All gone. Now, it's a silent testament to the price of war. We began the slow, painful task of searching for the missing, of burying our dead, of trying to comprehend the sheer scale of the devastation. The smell of death was everywhere. Liberation was not a celebration, it was a reckoning. It was the beginning of a long, arduous journey of rebuilding not just our city, but our lives from the ashes. Today, Manila is a bustling metropolis once more. New buildings stand where ruins once lay. The scars are still here, though, if you know where to look. They are in the old bullet holes on a forgotten wall, in the memories of the survivors, and in the stories we must continue to tell. The Battle of Manila is a stark reminder that in war, there are no real winners. Civilians who ask for nothing but to live in peace often pay the highest price. We must never forget the 100,000 souls lost, and we must never forget the city that was sacrificed. Remembering is not about dwelling in the past, it's about honoring the resilience of the human spirit and vowing to never let such a tragedy happen again. Thank you for listening to our story. If you found this story important, please consider subscribing for more chapters of our shared history.